call the meeting to order. We'll start with Mr. Abbott leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So we have some discussion points we're going to have. One of the things that we're putting forth is a discussion about not making any changes this coming year. This is a board discussion that we're going to have. The idea is perhaps, since we've had several roadblocks that have delayed our survey and delayed our committees, that perhaps we'll wait and not do the change this coming year, with some anticipation of changes next year. Let me say that, the 2021 school year. So that's what the board is here to discuss today. We ask that you please keep comments down so we can hear each other. I'm trying to use the microphone because I know you have a hard time hearing me frequently. And then we'll have public comment section after. Take it away.
Okay. Based on the additional information that we received from Mr. Lewis and the staff, I think it would be a good idea to table any changes in 19, but instruct the administration to start developing a plan for 2020 or 2021. And I would like that plan to include the Compass being returned to a junior high or middle school concept. And then the elementary schools, they could develop a plan based on what our finances are and what our student population is.
And how they want to group
Right.
the kids. I know there's room issues, because I had thought, we're kind of leaning towards moving second grade, not really moving, maybe just stay in those buildings, but if the K through 4 teachers and administrators are going to look at possibilities of different building configurations, and I don't know what they'll come up with. There was talk of, a preschool K building, or I'm not sure how that would look. And
There was some conversation, actually last night, with some second grade teachers about that move. Basically, the feedback I got was some of them would really like to. I mean, there's definitely a feeling that Compass may not be the place for them, but they're hesitant.
yeah, and Josh had said too that they actually had talked about the third graders being there, but I think it's the time.
Right.
The timing.
Right.
It's just a little too late.
Since our last meeting, or since the meeting with the teachers, I should say, I had some time to talk to some administrators, some teachers, got some more emails from some Compass teachers. I do think doing something about the situation at Compass with the broad range, developmentally and socially, between 2nd and 6th grade, there seems to be a lot of support for changing that. However, my biggest...
This year?
No, changing it sometime, eventually.
Yeah.
There's support for changing it. My concern is that talking to some of the people north and south, is that what we'll really be doing is taking some of the scheduling problems that they've had 2 years to work on at Compass and have made better, and transferring those problems into north and south
Right.
on a much smaller scale.
Yeah.
It might be better overall for the district, but we'll be putting a burden on them to fight their way through the first year of that, and then it'll possibly change next year. And I'm not thinking that's a good way to go. I think maybe we should, rather than change anything at this late date, obviously, things keep getting pushed later and later with superintendent issues, the investigation, and now with our passing of Mr. Mary, I think that we should probably set this out to the committees over the next year, and that'll give us a good chance to get a plan in place and maybe get all the scheduling figured out, which I think is my greatest concern after seeing the different scenarios with North and South and with Compass currently, is I don't want to burden them with the scheduling problems just to change everything up again. So I think that taking that year to plan it, as far as our budget, which is the primary driver for changing the buildings right now anyway, I just don't think we're going to get the buildings reconfigured in a major enough way in any case to see the budget savings we need to address our deficit this year anyway. I think we're going to have to attack that as our superintendent has suggested, attack it more creatively and just cut back everywhere else. If we can save $850,000 or so that way, we're still running a deficit.
Right.
That's still gonna, we'll throw it up as a $500,000 deficit a year, but that puts our survivability out at 5-6 years rather than 3. So I think that'll give us a year to plan and to come up with a good plan to chop away at that $500,000 deficit the following year. So any 2 years from now.
One question I'd like to somehow to address this year, it was brought to our attention that the 6th graders aren't getting to be involved in activities that they have in the past because of being in that setup. If there's anything that could be developed by the administration to give them.
I already recommended the start and stop times be different for,
Right.
For the
Mr. Lewis
fifth and sixth
said
graders.
something about if we stagger the times,
yeah,
that might
the start
help
times,
that.
they could go with the high
And that's
school.
something that they can
Yeah.
develop.
And I
Well-
think that can be done mutually exclusive of the building
Right.
organization.
Oh, right,
So,
right, right.
you know, over the next month or so, a month or
Yes.
two, this is something that they can look at and we can implement for the beginning of the school year maybe, if they find a workable way around it, so.
And they've been doing a good job of tweaking things all along to try to make improvements.
Right.
So I think that would help even the lunch scheduling and everything if they stagger the start times. I mean, ideally, it would be nice to only have 4 grades there, and I really worry about the busing with the 7th and 8th graders and, you know, some of them missing out on opportunities. We had talked about growing the electives and maybe getting a shop in there and some different things like that, but that can be more of a long-term plan. And maybe with the start.
21.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe with the start and stop times changing, there's a way they could, you know, improve on that in the scheduling. And, you know, maybe Greg was onto something with, you know, maybe they could mix, you know, share teachers and, you know, they could even mix the 7th and 8th between the 2 buildings or I don't know.
I think that's a possibility for this year.
But I think we should still look at improvements for this.
Yes, we
Yeah.
can still make improvements without
Yeah.
reconfiguration, I
Right.
think. How big they are, I don't know, time will tell, but I really don't think that any significant reconfiguration is going to occur with things being pushed out as far as they have already. At least not a well-organized, successful one.
And that's what
Right.
we don't want to see again.
Right.
I agree with everything you guys have been saying. I think at this late date and just the feedback that we've gotten from the teachers, it just doesn't make sense to make them move at this point. But I do think that there are some things that we can do to alleviate things, and one of them you guys brought up, staggering start times. I think if we could do 5th and 6th grade starting earlier at Compass, that would be a benefit to everyone for next year, and that's something that doesn't require any movement or change. The other thing that I think we need to look at, the amount of seniors going out and the kindergartners coming in. There's a gap in there.
Yes.
So our funding is actually going to be.
It's gonna go down organically. We've got 225 out of a possible 228, I think. I'm pulling that from memory. Griff isn't here, is he? No, okay. I'm pulling that from memory, but I think a couple weeks ago we had 225 out of 228, and we don't know the kindergarten yet. But if we maintain the average, we're only going to bring in about 200 new enrollments because of the young 5s that are currently enrolled just going forward and staying in kindergarten. So 25 students.
We've got a potential for 25 to 50 students.
Right.
Difference
There's a
in the-
potential there, but we just won't know until the first day of school.
The other piece of it is that we don't know who's going to come back. So this, one of the things that I want to make sure that we do as part of this restructuring is that we have a long-term solution. I want to make sure that, we look at growth rates, potential additional students in future years and make sure that whatever we come up with is going to sustain that, so we're not sitting back here in 3 years, 5 years, having to reconfigure
Yeah,
again
that's a good
based on
idea.
growth. So, you know, a lot of information has come out in the last couple of weeks, and we've had some great meetings that have, you know, kind of pushed us in different directions. I think there's a lot of different configurations that we can come up with. Our biggest issue is we don't have one big school other than Compass to move a 2 grade, you know, we don't really have something that will handle 2 grades alone. You know, we're gonna have to split those up in some way. So I think that there's a lot more discussion, and obviously getting the committees going, you know, once we can do that. You know, we have a building committee, but I'm not sure if it's necessarily a reconfiguration.
There's a
We
there's
should.
a facilities committee. It could be used for facilities,
We
for
might-
building usage, but it's primarily for, you know, maintenance, repairs, condition building.
But I think we should have a team of teachers and administrators.
I think that.
I mean, I think the K through 4, if we plan on those being elementary, but they should be in charge of how, they should come up with a plan on how they think those could best be
Now,
configured.
I think we could create another committee, potentially another committee or offshoots from our current committees to work on this configuration.
I was gonna
But
say,
don't
we
think
could
it's a
roll it into
two-year.
facilities, and, because facilities, we should have a facilities director who's, you know, got a lot of that handled already for facilities. It should be relatively light workload.
But I,
Say
yeah,
it. This one. So we could possibly roll it into facilities and then bring in administrators and teachers in larger work sessions in that committee.
I think it should be, you should have that committee and they should work together, but I think there should be a separate committee of,
Just for reconfiguration?
yes, for teachers. Because I think they can,
I'd like to see some ideas from teachers come
Milton's
forward.
just gonna say, he's
Yeah.
gonna disagree with
I
you.
believe it should be pushed onto administration. Administration should have, sit
Yeah.
down and design what the district should look like, especially when we find a permanent superintendent. It's going to be his or her responsibility of how this district is going to work and how to set it up. That's their job. I'd like to see administration and then maybe 1 or 2 of us on the committee, driven by administration.
But with the input of teachers.
Yeah.
Yes.
And a report to us monthly.
I agree.
And, you know, we need to set a date of either November or December, give us a final report.
I'd like to have whatever it's going to be in place before Christmas break.
Yeah.
That's.
That would be my goal,
That is
too.
my drop dead date, to know.
Then you have another 3 or 4 months to get it completely organized on how
Right.
you're gonna do it.
Another thing will play a part in
Exactly.
that is the first count.
the
I'm
first count's
sorry?
gonna be
The
there.
first count will play into that.
Yes, that's true.
We talk too fast, Kevin.
Sorry. Kevin is taking minutes today, so we have to let him catch up.
You wouldn't believe what he's writing.
Stick figures don't
And
count.
Anna wasn't feeling well today, so we had to give her the evening off. Sorry, forgot. Any other thoughts?
No, I'm good.
No?
My other thought would be, I would like to see our policy committee meet and to start reviewing all the policies in the district. So that needs to be our number
I'd like to see
priority.
all the committees in place.
How about,
Curriculum, policy, all of them.
how about the head of each committee that we decide, you know, can kind of get their committee going? I mean, there's no reason why I can't say, hey, I'm gonna,
Well, we have the committee list and
Yeah.
and the contacts for all those people.
Right.
So it could be done in that manner, and I think now that school's coming to a close,
yeah, certain ones it
it
should
might
start,
be
right?
easier to make those contacts and get
Yeah.
those committees up and running. But Greg will also be here, and I think
Yeah.
as we wind down that last week of school or so, right after that, he'd be able to handle it. The last week, I think he's gonna have his hands full.
Yeah. As if he doesn't already.
Right?
All right, we need a motion to table it?
No?
No.
No, we just.
Oh, we've already
so
tabled.
no action.
That's it, we want to vote on that.
Oh, we haven't gotten to the action. So that brings us to public comment. And we are limited to 3 minutes during public comment, as the agenda is full, please.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Lynn Davis. I'm a parent and a citizen in the district. I just want to thank you for listening to the teachers and for meeting with them, and this result, I think, shows that. I think as you move forward into the 20 and 21 season, think about the children that are going to have extra kind of moves. And in my case, not one of my children, but I'm thinking of the kids that are in 6th grade today, moving into 7th grade, then moving into 8th grade. We might want to consider how do they move from 7th to the high school with 8th in the high school just for 1 year, so that their transitions aren't so choppy. You know, I think most of you have had children of that age. It's not an easy age. It's hard to learn and it's hard to grow and it's an emotional time. So that might just be something to consider. But I appreciate you guys listening and taking into account everything. This is a big move from where you guys started, and so I just wanted to recognize that. So thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted, is she suggesting the 8th grade in the high school for 1 year?
Yeah, so that they only make one building move.
Well, okay, I just wanted to be, that's fine, I just wanted.
Wow, you guys have put me in an awkward position here. Thank you so much. Wow, really? I am just so happy. I'm flabbergasted and so thankful. So this is great. I really appreciate that you've decided to slow down. I'm glad that you're thinking about things as being not a year away, but sometime in December that folks would know. This is all really good information. I'm so happy to hear that we're going to have a permanent superintendent.
We're gonna work on it.
This is good.
For him or
For
her?
him or her, yep. Mhm. So I want to say that first off. Thank you all very much. I do, however, want to say, I did see the articles that came out today in the Tecumseh Herald, and I'm troubled by the revelations that were made about the two-path option for the high school. I did get a copy of Brad Hamilton's email to you guys, not the first initial one there, but his parting email, cautioning folks about following the rules, making sure that you're deliberating and following the chain of command. And we had 2 meetings ago, I think, the board president say that the board hadn't made any decisions about the two-path option, and that the email that went out was not something that I guess anybody on the board had anything to do with. In the paper today, as I read, Mr. Simpson says that's not what happened, that there were people that were involved in the board in making that decision and directing the superintendent. And so I just want to make sure that everybody understands that that's not how it's supposed to work. Directions that are made to the superintendent are supposed to come from a public meeting where a vote has occurred, and then those decisions are then supposed to be followed, because that is your power. You do have the authority to make these kinds of decisions.
Can I answer to that, Bill?
I'm speaking. And it's very important to me, especially since it's quite obvious from the email from Mr. Hamilton that he had cautioned you guys a number of times. And I'm not saying who it is, because I don't know who it is other than Mr. Simpson has admitted it himself. Who else would have been involved in this directing the superintendent? But you're opening yourself up to, and I just want to give you guys like a heads up that I did contact the Michigan Attorney General's office today to let them know about this criminal activity, because it is criminal activity. The Open Meetings Act is supposed to be followed. When we don't follow the rules, we have this potential for the corrupting influence on the institution. So I'm glad, again, so much for your slowing things down, being deliberative, not just jumping the gun and making whatever reconfiguration changes you're making. But it is important that we follow the rules. And I hope in the future that you guys will be making sure that the chain of command, the superintendent being the person that is chosen and empowered with the authority to make the decisions that you guys tell them to do as a group, the way it's supposed to work. Just, really, that'd do an awful lot to help us with the trust in the community. Thank you very much.
Diane Gore, and I just wanted to say the same thing. Thank you. As someone who has stood at the microphone and said, please slow down, I appreciate the slowing down. So, thank you.
Mark Magus. I'm going to be cautiously optimistic because the slowing down is, I agree with everybody else, it's good. Because the previous rapid changes have made a lot of people nervous. So I'm glad to see it's deliberative process, excuse me. And I was glad to hear Mr. Abbott say, any reconfiguration should really be administrative driven. And I was glad to hear Mr. Benzing comment about that when to make these if there's any changes to be made, they need to be made the right way, so there's no changes further, a few years down the road. With that said, during the previous reconfiguration, there was a lot of look towards growth, the way it turned out obviously didn't make everybody happy, but there was a lot of thought put into it, and a lot of community feedback was put into it. Really, if we're gonna be growing again, we need some sort of consistency. So any changes should be slow and deliberative, and I look forward to having some consistent leadership in the administration. So I think that'll help everybody, not only in the board but in the community. So thank you.
Jones. I am an outgoing senior, and I just wanted to say that from a student perspective, I'm very happy to hear that there's going to be some level of stability in Tecumseh Public Schools, because from the student perspective, I've been in Tecumseh Public Schools for about 2 years. The instability that has been present has almost become the butt of a joke throughout the student body, where a outgoing superintendent is almost like, here we go again. That sort of deal. So I'm very happy to hear that there's going to be an attempt there to have everything leveled out. And I agree with all the previous comments about slowing down and having to be slow and deliberate being a good thing. Even though I'm on my way out, it's nice to hear that there's going to be some dust settling, as it were.
I'm Raymond Schmidt. I taught here for 33 years. I'm happy to hear that you're slowing down. I'm also would say don't make any changes in what's taking place in the schools until you've done the planning and looking towards your one Tecumseh. You need to plan. There was a lot of planning that went on in this, and all of you know that when you change things, there are problems that occur, and you have to step forward. And to all of a sudden say, well, we got to do this with the 6th grade, and we got to do this and start time. Things are working right now. My 3 granddaughters, who will be leaving the school district, are very happy with the compass configuration. They love it. My one granddaughter, who is at STEAM East, loves it. She has flourished in this program. I've seen a lot of kids flourish in this program. I taught industrial arts for 20 years. PBL, project-based learning.
That's right.
It works very well. And yes, I agree, some shop classes, some home ec classes, some things need to maybe come back. we can't move back to the 60s, 70s, and 80s. We need to continue to move forward with the progress that was taking place, and people are trying to put a stop to it. I'm losing my son, my daughter-in-law, and my 3 grandkids because of the choices and the pressure that this board has put on them. I did not support the recall. I know there's one coming for you. I do not support that. That is not the answer. The answer is for you to listen to people, and you finally have. You should have been meeting with the teachers at every dang building with a committee of 3 of you so you meet the right criteria and saying, what do we need to do? Is this working or is it not? Instead of coming in and firing this person who I thought was a very excellent superintendent. I compare her to Jerry Pound, who I worked under, who was very innovative and did an excellent job in moving Tecumseh forward. My concern is the things you want to go back to is not moving us forward. Thank you for listening to me.
You know I'm going to probably talk at every meeting, not really, but my name is Melissa Hilton, and I'm an educator. I'm a proud educator. I want to say thank you for hearing the public and taking the time to meet with the teachers, and I commend the board for the 3 that were sitting at kind of the target, and really, I wouldn't have wanted to be in your seat. I have an exiting senior as well, and it's a very emotional time for me, not only as a parent, it's a time for celebration, but also as a kindergarten teacher. And today we went to the Toledo Zoo, and it was, thank you, thank you, thank you. It was a beautiful day. The prediction of the weather, you never know what storm is coming. It's kind of like at the board meeting, you never know what storm is coming. But there's always a rainbow, and so I just want to say thank you to all of you for hearing both sides of the education. You know, some teachers are 110% in, some teachers aren't really sure, they're 50-50. Please do not stop coming into our buildings. Come and see what's happening and what's good. Now we only have, what, 8 or 9 days left, so it might be a little crazy. But maybe pop in and say, you know what, these teachers are really dedicated to the very end of, you know, these children are dedicated to their education. The parents are still sending their kids to our schools. I had a parent say to me today, they thanked me, and they said, you know what, we believe in Tecumseh Public Schools in this storm because of, not me, but because of the teachers and because of the strong administration that are double dipping in 2 buildings, or they're, you know, I look at some of the former administrators who are no longer in an administration position, and they're stepping in our time of tragedy, and we're working together, and we're getting through this, and we have to celebrate our triumphs. And I think that if we continue to move forward and work together, we're gonna shine. And there's gonna be some rain clouds, and there's gonna be some mud puddles, but teaching kindergarten, sometimes the most beautiful thing is the mud puddle and letting people jump in it and see the mud that gets on their clothing and the spray and wash that will take out that. So all of those analogies I know are really deep. I'm very emotional. It's been a very challenging year, and I look forward to summer break, and I look forward to continuing to work with people that I might disagree with and find a common ground. You don't have to agree to find comfort in what you're doing. So I appreciate all of you, and I thank you for hearing every time I've come up here and complained about how tall the microphone is. But we're going to get through this, and I think that our community has proven in the last week and a half that, you know, Ray's losing his family, and I'm losing my best friend because of the storms, you know, you think about a lot of storm. So please continue to visit our buildings and look at what is working. Not just in one building or one classroom, because you're always going to have strengths and you're always going to have a weak link. But in order to make those links, you know, connect, we all need to see what's going on and realize what isn't working well. So I just wanted to say thank you for hearing us. And I would be happy to, I can't make a commitment to be on a committee, but I would love to come to some of your meetings or share something that is working really well. So thank you for your time and commitment to our district and our
I'm Claudia Trapp, Tecumseh resident. I feel for them that they're losing their family or leaving and everything, and I appreciate that you guys are taking the time to listen to teachers, but I still have to look back to what started this. There were parents that were unhappy, children that were leaving. How many students did we leave? Kelly Coffin had the best intent. We know it was implemented wrong, we've admitted to that, but things are not going. The one thing we need is data. We've asked, you've asked for data. It can be the best program, the kids are flourishing and doing wonderful, but when they get down to the brass tacks, and there are still tests to be taken, and they want to go to college and be prepared, or they want to go to the next step of education, we don't have the data. There are people out there pushing programs, motivational speakers that are making tons of money on this, PBL, SHOP. Yes, those were hands-on activities. We took all that out. It was wrong to take home ec out, take all those things that we had. We don't want to go back to the Ice Age, and I resent those that think that we just want to go back to that. We want back what Tecumseh was a wonderful place, wonderful teachers, and we are, and it is. But when we talk about programs or curriculums or changes, it just, data, we need data. And if they can come up with data that this program is working, I think it would put a lot of people's minds at ease, because we lost a lot of people last year. Why? And we had an election. Why?
Again, like everybody else, I want to thank you, and I also want to reiterate what some of the other people said about really considering the sixth graders. I mentioned this at the last meeting. So when you're talking about longevity and stability in the plans, please keep in mind those sixth graders. My son is going to visit STEAM West tomorrow, and I literally told him, I don't know, don't get your hopes up, I don't know what's going to happen. I can go home and tell him, yes, you're going to that school next year. I don't want to be here again at Christmas and saying, now you're going to a different school. So please keep the class of 2025 in mind. They need at least a 2-year plan. Thank you.
Hi, Grace McGill, you know who I am. Thank you. Really, from the bottom of my heart, I am really happy that you are putting this back and taking more time to think your plans through. So for that, I really thank you. And another thing I would like to say, you never lost a one Tecumseh. That one Tecumseh's in this room everywhere. And you saw it this last week. Okay? It's here.
Hi, Nancy Gotham. I didn't plan on speaking tonight, but the one thing I want to say is we lost a lot of students, and that's why we are trying to make changes. And we have a budget to consider. So that's another reason why there's changes that we're wanting to be possibly made, in the next year. And you guys are slowing down, and I know it makes a lot of people happy. but I was at the meeting here where a lot of the teachers spoke. And there was at least 5 of them that said, you know, listen to us, what you guys did. But all of them that says, don't worry about the budget. Don't talk, they didn't say don't worry, don't talk about the budget. But everybody's got to remember that we've got to consider that. And I wanted to email it to you guys, but I just haven't got around to it, so I wanted to get up and say that. And just, everybody remember, change is hard for everyone. And, you know, the reason there was a recall and we got the new board was because how many people did we lose? How many students? Was it 200? So there was a reason. Just please remember that, you guys. And the board's trying to do the best they can. Thanks.
Potential.
Thank you all. Board member comments? To build on some of what's been said tonight, I've told you before that I've stayed off of social media for months. Someone brought it to my attention that apparently my husband liked something and I got blamed for it, but whatever. If you look at my Facebook, it's Bill and Becky Brooks, so if he does it, I get blamed, it's good. To build on what you're saying though, this one Tecumseh, whatever you want to call it, this Tecumseh pride. It's time to step away from the negativity. It's time to step away from the social media nonsense. The weatherman has better predictions. And let's show what Tecumseh pride is all about. I'm not even going to discuss a recall. It is what it is. You all know why you voted the way you did. I don't want you to think I'm letting you down. I'm not. But I want this move to be right. I want it to be deliberate. And I want it to be well planned. If you heard me talk before, if you heard me talk during our recall, I said my truth about what was going on with my daughter. She's sitting right there. She's not going to let me lie. And in that, the thing I said most was, it was not well planned and not well executed. And I do not want us to make that mistake again. I want our teachers involved. I want our administrators involved. I want to have a solid plan to move forward. Thank you. That brings us to our vote.
Make a motion that we table it?
Well, I prefer to make a motion that we leave them unchanged for this year with the understanding that by Christmas break of next year, we will have a firm plan in place. I'd like to see, personally, I'd like to see the middle school go back to what it was, 5th through 8th, but I'm willing to hear what everybody else has to say. Thoughts?
I'm in favor of that table for 19, but we got to have a plan in place for 2021.
Okay. Do you want me to make a motion on that, or what do you want to do?
So make a motion to just table it.
Okay.
No more for this coming year.
Okay.
Your support?
Is it supported?
No, are you supporting it? Okay, thank you. Would you like to do roll call? Would you like me to? I may get your hands full.
Okay. Roll call. Abbott?
Aye.
Benson? Aye. Brooks?
Aye.
Johnson? Aye. McNamara? Aye. Moore?
Aye.
Motion carried. That brings us to the end of our meeting. Thank you all.